like to start the workshop first?
Okay. Oh, Michelle. Here we go.
Hello.
Okay, the first thing on the workshop agenda is the LGBT ordinance.
We call it a non-discrimination ordinance, but,
Okay,
and we're open for comments from our residents.
I guess our comments will come when we go to approve the advertisement.
Yes, and these are comments on the functionality of the ordinance because we previously approved the concept of having such an ordinance. And now we're asking for comments on the draft document itself.
Anybody out there have comments on the written ordinance?
We did get one. We did ask
Did-
for people to send written comments and we did get one by email, right?
Yes, yes, just one.
How about anybody else on anybody on this Zoom that wants to make a comment?
Well, hearing none, I don't know, so was somebody chiming in then?
No, I'm just looking here to see if anybody has raised hands. No. So,
Okay, so since this has first come about, I've had 4 people. I don't know if they just emailed me and not out there in the general public. And those emails have been in opposition.
Right.
And the reason that they are opposed is that they feel not so much that they're opposed to an anti-discrimination ordinance, but it's the mechanics of how to put this in place, how we as a small township could actually get enough people together to have this, let's say, this commission, and then what authority would they have and how that might impact people down the line. So now let me go back and say 2 have been concerned about process, and the other 2 have been concerned about, I'm just going to say this, religious principles. I just wanted to throw that out there and let it be known that there those who are considering process make a valid point, and I would like to hear from anybody and everybody as to how they might feel that this could easily be done in the future, how we could actually have this commission, how we could deal with somebody's complaint, and how much weight that might carry.
Yeah, Bernie, if I can address that, what municipalities do is they first pass the ordinance,
Right?
then they appoint the commission. The commission itself comes up with the rules and procedures on how they're going to handle complaints. If they want a complaint form, they come up with a complaint form. If they want to charge a fee for it, if they want to have hearings and investigate and all that stuff, they come up with their own rules and regulations, how they want to function as a commission. This ordinance just establishes the commission and assigns to them their task. That's all this ordinance does. So it's like an enabling ordinance where you enable, let's say, the Historical Society, but then they come up with a lot of their own rules and procedures. You don't put it in the ordinance. It'd be too voluminous to be put in the ordinance.
Okay, thank you for that.
And to be candid with you, a lot of municipalities have never gotten around to actually doing procedures because nobody's getting any complaints. It's rare, exceedingly rare, that there be a complaint. I'm only aware of one that's happened anyway.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Can I say something?
Sure.
I spoke about this before when you guys were first mentioning it, and then voted for whatever you voted for on it. I'm going to come back to the same thing. I'm repeating myself. The fact of the matter is that this is all done on feelings. This is something where somebody feels that somebody slighted them because they're gay or lesbian or whatever. And then they say, well, they wouldn't serve me if they wouldn't do anything. Well, in my business, I can turn down anybody for any reason. If I'm not comfortable with their ID and I feel it's fake, or if they don't meet the standard. Well, if somebody's mad about that and they say, well, they did it because I'm gay. I don't ask them if they're gay. I don't know if they're gay. I don't care if they're gay. I don't have any problems with that. It becomes an issue where if somebody wants to file a complaint against me or any other business in the township, we have to spend the time and money to defend ourselves against what would be most likely a ludicrous claim. So it becomes very frustrating that because somebody's perception of how I treated them becomes something that now gets put in front of a jury. And Mike said it best before when he said, has there ever been a problem in the township? No, there's never been a problem in the township. Well, this is supposed to be kind of reactionary. You don't write laws for something that might happen. You write them when there's a problem and you need to fix that problem. So what you're going to end up doing is spending a lot of money to fix something that doesn't exist, or if it does, nobody's ever said anything about it or even complained to the township or anything else. I don't know of any instances of this, and now granted, I've only been in business here for 30 years, so I'm sure there could have been something at some time, but that's my feelings on it. The fact of the matter is, this is all on feelings. It's not on fact.
Couldn't agree with you more there, Barry. So should I save my comments to when we get to authorizing this?
Well, this is a good time for public conversation.
Okay. Well, I have a serious problem with this. And my problem pretty much lies on the idea that we, the three of us, have the right or even the ability to regulate perception. I don't think that there should ever be a law that regulates a person's perception. I think it will lead to some really dangerous regulating of thought in the future. It has the effect of giving a right to somebody, but taking it away from another. I just find this very, very insane, to put it bluntly.
Okay, so I've heard that perception word used twice, and let me just chime in here with, there's been occasions where, and my wife and I have been discriminated against when we were attempting to adopt. And the first instance was, it didn't deal with perception, it dealt with reality. Our position as single individuals, we were denied. And then further down the line, when we were going through another Christian adoption agency, and because we didn't avow to be Christian, they denied us. This is not perception. This is
Bernie, so you're saying that people don't have a right to their beliefs. Basically, you're saying this religious organization has to bow to your beliefs and not their own beliefs. So again, this is a problem. You cannot go down these roads. People have a right. If I'm a Catholic organization and I only want to allow adoption from Catholics, that should be my right. There should be nothing wrong with that. You shouldn't be able to force people to go along with what you believe, and they shouldn't be able to force you to go along with what they believe. And that's why it's belief and it's perception. It's not real. It's not actuals.
Well, that would be okay.
Law should always deal with actuals.
That would be okay if I wanted to get married in a Catholic church and I was not Catholic. But my right to be able to adopt a child,
you have that right.
That's a civil matter. That's a civil matter, and religion should never come to play in a civil matter. And so you're conflating two things that don't belong together.
No, Bernie, you have the right to adopt, and you can adopt. Maybe you can't adopt through a Catholic or Christian organization, but there's plenty of other choices for you to adopt. So your right has not been taken away from you. and it preserved the right of the other organization to follow their beliefs.
True, but what if then that one child that I wanted to adopt was being held with this one organization? Then I am being denied.
Well, you don't have a right to other people's.
They're not, I don't want to hear you say other people's property.
Well, I mean, yeah, in the case of a child, I guess it wasn't other people's property, but it basically goes down the same lines. You don't have the rights to the other person's business. They have the right to choose if they're a restaurant, what their menu is, the times that they want to be open, and it just, yeah, we all, and going back to discrimination, we all discriminate. We do it constantly. We do it with the partners we choose. We do it with everything that we choose, actually. We make decisions based on what we like, what we believe. We don't make them because we're blind to it all. We're not blind to it. We're human. So, I mean, again, you can't go into the area of thought and non-reality because that is too dangerous.
That's funny. I got turned down for adopting a cat because I didn't fit the right parameters. Does that mean that they were discriminating against me because I didn't meet their standard?
Of course. I mean,
It
there's
was because my other cats didn't have their shots up to date. Well, my cats were inside. It's the same thing. And that was a cat, man, a cat.
Well, dog breeders do the same thing. They interview you before they'll allow you to take the dog. I mean, it's just normal.
Okay,
Excuse me,
we're
folks.
not talking about dogs.
Can I comment here, please? The discrimination we're talking about is against lesbians, gays, bisexual. Those are people that legally you cannot discriminate against. Like you can't discriminate against a person because he's black. We're not talking about all the other types of discrimination you're allowed to make. We're talking about discrimination that's illegal.
Well, that's funny because the ordinance was described by Christopher Carroll as for all people, not just those groups of people. It's all people. That's what I thought he said.
Did you read the ordinance, Barry?
I didn't read it. I'm
Okay, I did.
So-
at the meeting.
And
Okay,
and
and
in
this
the
is,
ordinance, it mentions actual or perceived. Again, this perceived has to go. It can't be perceived.
Oh, yeah.
What was it? Self-perception. That's insane to regulate self-perception. What if I think that I am a engineer? Should I force the engineering company to hire me because I believe I'm an engineer? No. You cannot go down these perceived routes. They're just too dangerous. Today it's about sex beliefs, but tomorrow it could be something else. What will be tomorrow? Who knows?
But we are talking about today here, Mike. So why don't we stick to today? And when we get to tomorrow, we'll deal with that.
Well, except for this leads to tomorrow.
I know the slippery slope argument. You can't do anything reasonable because somebody could take that and do something unreasonable. I don't buy that.
This is not a reasonable thing. You're talking about
Well,
perception.
then let's talk about whether it's reasonable today, not whether you can
It's not.
extrapolate
I mean,
to something
in my mind, it's
unreasonable
not.
tomorrow.
Okay, in my mind, it is not.
Okay.
So,
may I remind the assembled that more than a month ago, several months ago, we voted that we wanted to have this ordinance. And what we delayed at the time, because Bernie and Mike agreed it would be nice to have this comment session in person, was that we would hold off on publishing the ordinance until we had another chance for public comment. At our last meeting, Bernie said he wanted to reconsider that because we plan to be using Zoom sort of for the indefinite future. And so we shouldn't hold up township business for that reason. So we put it back on the agenda at last month's meeting. What we put on the agenda was the ordinance itself. Is the ordinance workable? We've got
in my mind, no. If you take out perceived, yes.
just that one word, Mike.
Yep. Self-perception, and anytime it says actual or perceived.
What do you think, Joe? Do you have it in front of you?
Iris.
I don't have the ordinance in front of me, but it's not, the perception is what the person perceives them to be. The individual person perceives them to be, not what other people perceive them to be.
What is the difference between actual and perception?
Well, actually, you're a guy, but if you think you're
Well, how is that
a
determined?
woman in a guy's body and you
How is
tell
it
everyone,
determined if you're a guy? Who determines that you're a guy?
Biology, maybe?
But,
Yeah,
you
biology.
mean how you perceive their appearance? How you perceive them to be?
No, it's
The only
biology.
way to establish the actual sexuality of a person is to perceive it.
you're not
Just-
perceiving them. You're not
You can't take
perceiving them.
perceiving out of that.
They are perceiving
Excuse me,
themselves.
excuse me. I'm listening in. The way I see the ordinance is basically if I think that somebody is gay and I decide not to serve them based upon my perception of what their orientation might be, that's what the perception is referring to. Not
No.
how, that is exactly how it's referring.
No, it actually isn't, because what will end up happening if I perceive myself as female and you do not acknowledge that I'm female for whatever employment or may be or whatever the reason may be, you can file a grievance
That's
about
not,
that.
I think council should answer that question for you.
Okay.
If it's how the person who's claiming discrimination, you're saying that the person who's claiming discrimination is saying, you're perceiving me this way, therefore I'm being, or I perceive myself to be a woman, although I was born a man. I don't
Right.
think that's what the ordinance is saying. I think the ordinance is saying whoever is offering this service perceives me a certain way and then decides to discriminate against me. So I think,
No, I mean, I would agree
I
with
think
you.
if you're saying no, you need to ask counsel. You
Well,
need
that's
to ask
fine.
counsel.
But
Gentlemen,
in the
I think,
ordinance, it says self-perception.
I
in the
think
Yes,
ordinance.
you're,
let Joe answer. The example that you've given about employment, I believe that's covered at the federal level. We are trying to fill a very small gap left by the federal and state laws.
Joe, are you still there?
I'm still there. I was waiting for a pause in the conversation to chime in.
Okay.
The perception is how the individual perceives their sexuality. If they believe that they are a woman inside of a man's body, then they're to be treated like a woman. That's the perception.
Right.
Not the perception of someone else looking on them. It's the perception of how they perceive themselves.
I stand
And-
corrected. I stand
Okay, and
corrected.
they would have the right to basically complain if you do not see them the way they see themselves.
Right.
Right. That is the problem.
No, if you take an action, it's not asking how people think, it's how you behave.
Well, I agree with that, Sarah. That is actually
If you
true.
perceive that person as a male who thinks she's trapped in a male's
body,
woman
right.
trapped in a male's body, that's your perception of her. But if you discriminate with her, I'm not going to let her work at Lonnie Ice because I don't like her gender confusion, then you're probably doing something. You're acting on your perception about her, not about her perception of herself.
Well, I actually think in the ordinance, if it would, let's say Lonnie, if Claudia decided that she didn't want to hire a male dressed like a woman, I think she has that right because it's a employment look, I guess. I mean, Joe, you'd have to correct me in this. I thought in the ordinance it had some exceptions to employment where it had
Yeah,
an
when it
effect
comes-
on their business.
The Supreme Court just came down with a case recently that they are recognizing this class of people for employment situations. So the federal and state governments are now going to handle the employment part related to this community.
Right,
It's
but
the other non-employment discriminations
Right.
that are left
Service,
uncovered by anyone.
like goods and services provided to the general public at large.
Yeah, if somebody comes in and identifies themselves as a woman, but they're obviously in a man's body, and you refuse to sell to them something that you would sell to anyone else, that's discrimination.
right, but okay, so I mean, I've heard of cases where professors were fired, lost their employment over not referring to somebody by the way they wanted to be, whatever. What did I just say? Damn it.
Perceived.
Perceived, right? They perceive themselves as a woman, and he used a male, whatever. You've heard of those cases, right? Especially, I think it was a they thing, that the professor would not refer to that person as they, and lost his job over it. And I think there's more than just one case of this going on. So that's taken the right, the perception right of the professor out of this. And I think these laws have this effect, like Barry said earlier.
I think that's an employer issue. It is that the school made the judgment that they wanted to respect people's gender choices. It was not the law.
School,
It was an employer question.
well, I understand that. But when you write these laws and you put it out there that you have to adhere to a person's self-perception, you're opening up the possibility for businesses and others to be sued or taken to court over
Mike, you're not being asked to adhere to anybody's self-perception. You're being asked to not pay any attention to that. You're not to make a decision based on that. It's not what you think, it's how you act.
Okay, but what if my action is not to refer to that person as a she when it's a he?
We're
Is
not
that again?
covering that. We're not covering that in this ordinance.
Mike, envision someone coming into a store who's black.
Right.
And store owner says, "We don't sell to blacks, get out of the store." Same scenario with someone who perceives them to be something other than their biological sex.
But I mean, again, I don't understand the purpose then, because somebody's perception of themselves has nothing to do with, going to stores, going to restaurants, housing, whatever. It's their perception. So what? I mean, why or how would I know?
Yeah, but if they are discriminated because of the way they perceive themselves.
Well, how would I know that?
That's the discriminatory act. Well,
Yeah,
sometimes you wouldn't know.
I wouldn't know that.
But,
Okay,
yeah,
so I have a
work.
rental. I have a rental that I'm renting, and I get a couple of applications, and I meet the people and everything else. And this person is dressed and acts, I guess, like a woman, but's really a man. Okay, and I end up giving the a rental to somebody else. Well, that person could file a grievance on me claiming that it had to do with their sexual orientation, when in fact it had something to do with their finances or whatever else the reasons would be to pick somebody.
Well, it's a matter of proof, like any other discrimination.
Again, yes,
case.
I agree, it is. I just have a major problem with any law that deals with perceptions or thought. So that's my worry. I don't want anybody discriminating for any reason, but the thought thing just scares me. Anybody else? Any comments from anybody else, Kath?
No, I don't see any hands.
Okay, I guess we'll move on. I think next on the list was clean energy.
Is there a motion on that?
No, that's
Advertise?
later. That's in a regular meeting, Joe. This is a workshop. These
Okay.
two items are a workshop.
All right.
After we close this out, we'll get into the regular meeting. Okay, so who's handling the clean energy, or what's that about?
Kathy, can you allow me to share the screen?
Yes. Let's see.
While she's doing that, this is our energy transition team created as a result of the Ready for 100 action. It's 2 members of the Sustainability Committee and 2 members of the EAC. And this is their biannual report to us.
Okay.
No, semi-annual. Sorry.
Thanks, Sarah. You just stole my first 2 slides.
I'm sorry. I was just buying your time, Ken.
That's all right. Back in May, wrong slide. Back in May, the township passed a resolution supporting a 100% renewable energy future. And it had 2 goals: to transition to 100% cleaner renewable energy for electricity by 2035, and 100% for heat and transportation community-wide by 2050. So in order to get the ball rolling, the West Vincent Clean Energy Transition Team was created. And the first 4 members were Kathy and myself from the EAC, and Kirk Reinbold and Dave Weber from the Sustainability Committee. And then later on, John Granger started attending some of our meetings, and also Sarah serving as the Board of Supervisors liaison. And then hot off the press today, Ted Otini agreed to join us as the Planning Commission liaison. So as Sarah said, we committed to giving a 6-month update. And in those 6 months, we got very familiar with Zoom. We've had over 20 meetings on Zoom. But for the most part, the first couple of months, we spent all of our time just learning, doing research on the electricity markets, renewable energy, climate issues, energy efficiency in buildings. We were able to utilize a lot of video presentations that the Ready for 100 have created. And we've also looked at some webinars at Penn State and some other research features. Kirk was involved in several little side projects. He had some discussions with the police chief on some idling issues with the vehicles. You may have seen vehicles, police vehicles idling whilst nobody's in there. That's because sometimes they have to keep the car running because of all the computer equipment. And later, some newer vehicles have a second battery in them so that the computer equipment runs off of the battery. And Kirk found out talking with the chief is that we only have 1 vehicle that does not have the second battery, and that's a truck. And looked into getting what would be the cost of getting a second battery, but it turned out it would cost too much, and that vehicle is going to be replaced next year anyway. So next year, when that vehicle is replaced and has a second battery, we're looking at potentially $1,000 savings a year in gas and maintenance. Kirk also, with Bernie Corus and the company that put in Bernie solar panels, went over to the township building and took a look at the solar panels that are on the roof. And they found some issues. The panels were not working properly. And when those issues were corrected, the first month electricity bill from PECO went down about a third compared to the prior year. So that little fix is going to save the township at least $750 a year in lower PECO bills. So we're already seeing some financial results from this little project that we're working on. And the Kirk also did some analysis on the township's PECO bills, and we're going to be looking for other savings out of that analysis. We have to put together an energy transition plan, and we're very fortunate that Ready for 100 Energy team developed a template that we can use as our starting point. So our team spent time looking at the draft of that plan, and we gave our feedback, and a lot of our recommendations were incorporated into the final version of that template plan. Lately, the last couple of months, we've been having a lot of meetings with the other communities, the 5 other members of the Phoenixville Regional Planning Commission. And we came up with a name for ourselves called the Phoenixville Area Clean Energy Alliance. So we've been having a lot of Zoom meetings about how we can collaborate, since all of these townships and boroughs, except for West Pikeland, have passed a similar resolution. But we're also looking at a potential Chester County Vision Partnership Program grant. And that grant would allow us to hire a consultant to help us with the implementation of our plan. And Kathy's going to be talking about that in a few minutes. So the next focus is on developing the energy plan for West Vincent. And that's a pretty daunting issue, because this is a 30-year plan. So to help us to get ready to develop that plan, Kirk, David, Kathy, and I are going to be attending workshops that are going to be put on by the Ready for 100 team. These are 14 training sessions starting tomorrow afternoon, actually. Some of the sample topics are understanding the township's energy profile, IDing and engaging stakeholders, which is a big part of this project, understanding the electricity markets, electricity procurement and production options, electrifying transportation options, and really important, financing and funding options. All of these sessions are going to have experts that are going to help us put together this plan. And the goal is that we will have a draft plan for West Vincent Township by November, using the template as our starting point. So I'm going to hand it over to Kathy to talk about the grant.
Okay, as Ken mentioned, this is a vision partnership plan. It's a grant through the Chester County Planning Commission, and it supports the Chester County Comprehensive Plan Landscapes 3. So we started gathering with the communities from the PRPC, the very end of May was our first meeting, I believe. And that's Phoenixville Borough, the townships of East Pikeland, Charlestown, Schuylkill, West Pikeland, and West Vincent. And most of them are about at the same place in our planning, creating our transition plan. The grant will allow us, the group, the alliance, to hire a consultant or consultants to assist in the review and initial implementation of the plan for the participating members. East Pikeland Township has agreed to be the lead municipality because they started this effort. The grant submission is due on September 25th. That's the completed application, with a decision being made in November. So the maximum grant that's awarded by the county is $30,000 for the type of grant we're looking at. The county would also provide an additional $5,000 for every additional municipality that participates. So that's 70% of the total funds comes from the county. The municipalities would match another 30% of the total amount, and that will be divided. Pardon?
Kathy, hold on a second. Kathy Schilling, can you other people there?
That's what I've been doing.
Okay, well, it was Mike who I was hearing instead of Kathy McDivitt, so thank you.
I can talk louder.
Kathy, but.
So what we're looking at for total, so the $30,000 base grant and $5,000 for each additional municipality, depending on the number of municipalities that actually participate in the grant, we're looking at a total amount between $50,000 and $78,500. That would be depending on whether we get 2 to 6 municipalities participating. And then the match per community could range between $3,900 to $7,500. And that again depends on whether you get if you get 6 municipalities participating, it's $3,900. Only 2 is $7,500 per municipality. Can I next slide, please? So the work for this grant would be done in 2021. That would be after, if we are awarded the grant, we would decide which consultants to hire, and then that's when the township matching funds are due in 2021. So this would be a budget item for 2021. The work would be done by the consultants and the transition team, and we broke it down into 3 different areas of deliverables. The first one would be the completion of the initial stakeholder interviews. So we would identify key stakeholders in West Vincent Township and common stakeholders in the group in the alliance. A consultant could help us create questionnaires, scripts, forums, focus groups, etc., to actually create conversations to get the information we need and to convey the information that we want to convey to the stakeholders. It would also be able to help us with the interviews as a technical expert. And then after all of the interviews, they should be able to help us with organization and analyzing the data and the feedback. The second area is in completion of the plan. Once we come out of this training with Ready for 100, we're going to have a rough draft of a transition plan. It was mainly going to be focusing on the electricity. So an energy expert should help us be able to help us complete the plan for the energy transition. Should also be able to help us with energy audits for the municipal operations. I'd like to note that this is consistent with West Vincent Sustainability Plan Initiative number 1. We can also help to identify and prioritize the actions. The first step would be to maximize efficient use of the energy. That's the first step in reducing the impact of energy consumption, is to use less energy. And this is consistent with our West Vincent Sustainability Plan Initiative number 2. Transitioning electricity and transportation heating to renewable energy sources. The plan template that we have available to us includes many options. Experts in the energy industry could help us select from all the different options and determine what best applies to our township. They could also help us set goals and actions for short-term actions, such as the low-hanging fruit that we've been working with, the idling issue and the solar panels, based on technology that's available now, and also establish long-term actions and goals based on either technology that might be coming down the road. They would have that sort of information. Again, this is a 30-year project. They would also be able to identify areas of collaboration between the municipalities. So examples like a PPA, so we could share in a solar project, but perhaps rideshare parking for SEPTA, who knows. There will be opportunities for projects that we don't have to do ourselves, that will be common amongst all the different municipalities in the alliance. We also would need to develop methods for measuring our progress as we start rolling out these actions, developing plans for reassessing and updating the energy transition plan. So we need to account for, there will be technology advancements. There might be changes in our township. So we're going to have to come back on a regular basis and review the plan, make sure the long range plan still makes sense, and to see if anything else has come up that we can immediately address. And then we can also investigate changes to local ordinances that could help achieve the goals. So we could review ordinances and building codes to include incentives for and remove obstacles to green building practices. And this is consistent with our West Vincent Sustainability Plan Initiative number 6. Have the next slide. So our next group of goals is education. Our transition team is a group of volunteers. We plan to advise the township on energy directions so that the township can lead by example. But we will not be dictating any energy choices to any consumers. But what we can do is to make it easier for residents and other stakeholders, such as business owners and school districts and residents, to choose clean energy solutions. And creating a sustainable energy program is Sustainability Plan Initiative number 4. The consultants could help us complete or acquire, develop materials for residents and businesses, agricultural enterprises, schools. We could either develop materials from existing sources or create professional grade materials tailored for our community. We also would need help probably rolling out that information. So once websites, social media, educational sessions, newsletters are available, we can have assistants effectively rolling out the information to the intended audiences. The educational environment or educational materials would be to inform consumers on renewable energy, actions that can be taken to help with the transition, local resources, information on the energy transition project, and information on local, county, and state laws. So again, these are all different areas that would be common to different groups in the Alliance, since we're all neighboring communities. So it makes sense for us to work together on this. And we feel that someone who's a professional communications consultant, an energy consultant, could help us roll this out in a sensible manner and a professional manner to reach our audience, to reach our residents and our business community. So this grant supports the Pennsylvania and Chester County Climate Action Plans, also the County and Phoenixville Regional Comprehensive Plans, and the West Vincent Sustainability Plan. And our team feels it's a good opportunity to join with the local communities to maximize our return on investment. So for a small, relatively small matching fund, we would multiply the amount of money we have to work with many times. And we'll be working with like communities, so we will be getting work done that really pertains to all of us. So we're asking for the board's approval to participate in this grant submission in September with the other members of the Alliance. What we would need from township, we would need the funds for matching, which is still being determined based on how many townships or municipalities will actually participate. A supervisor to be on the grant oversight board, and at least one team member to be on the oversight board. Are there any questions on the grant? On our updates?
I got one.
Yeah.
The program, as you have everything laid out, it's really nice. I like it. It looks to me in the beginning that it's only about the municipal property, the municipal owned properties. But then later on, I saw something at the bottom that said something about changing ordinances to help, I'm paraphrasing, to help comply or make it comply. So is this about just the township, the municipality itself? Or is this later on about changing ordinances to?
Well, we hope to start out with, it's easier for us to change what the township owns, right? So we can start with the municipality and make that as good an example as we can make it. And then we would like to make this a community-wide transition over 30 years. So we would like to examine, and I am not familiar with the ordinances right now, okay? I'm not an expert in that by any means. So, but we would like, it would be good if the ordinances made it as easy as possible for a developer to incorporate green technologies. I'm not sure what the other townships do either. So we'll be taking a look at that to see if we can make green technology basically to encourage with either incentives or to reduce obstacles.
Sure. So you're saying it's for new construction, not current construction, or the buildings don't have to be made up to date when somebody sells a property.
As I said, we can't issue mandates. So, and I don't know what, so you're concerned about property turnover. I'm not really sure. I'm not sure what kind of ordinances. As I said, we're going to work with the surrounding townships, and I would also hope an energy consultant could help us understand what is being done in the rest of the state, et cetera.
Okay.
So John,
it could.
Joe, story. I've drafted other ordinances that promote sustainability and energy saving devices. And what I've done in the past is build them into subdivision and zoning, primarily subdivision, so that people get bonuses for selecting a certain number of sustainable items. Like list 5 in Class A, there could be a grass roof, it could be plumbing fixtures, whatever. And if they pick 2 or 3 of those, they may get 5% more impervious, or they may get a little more in height to a building, or a little more in density to development. But in the past, I've used subdivision and zoning criteria to be the incentive for people to do green development.
Okay, cool. Thank you. That's what I'm looking to hear. Okay, thank you. That was my only question.
Do any of the supervisors have questions or comments about the grant itself?
I think this team is amazing. You're doing lots of good work. Thank you.
And what is that we might be on the hook for? Is that between 3,900 and 7,500?
7,500. Yes.
Yeah. All the other municipalities are all doing the same thing we're doing right now. So it's we'll have to see who all is going to commit, but we worked out the numbers between 1 to 6 municipalities. I don't think we'll do it with just one. I think East Pikeland, I said, wants to take the lead on this. So they're in. So between 2 and 6, we would have at just 2 municipalities, it would be $7,500 for a total grant amount of $50,000. And if all 6 are in, it's under $4,000 match per community and over $78,000 worth of grant of total funds available. So it's a big return on investment, especially we can encourage more communities to become involved.
It seems reasonable, yes.
Any other questions?
Let me look at the other. I am not seeing any.
Okay, then we can close the workshop section of the meeting.
Thank you very much, Kathy and Ken. That was very informative.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay. So I'd like to start the regular meeting at this time. And the first thing was, we don't have a approval for the minutes, correct?
Right.
That's not, okay. So the first thing on this agenda is bills list. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Bernie or Sarah want to read the motion?
I'm still looking for it. I make a motion.
I didn't print it, so I didn't.
I make a motion to approve the bills list as submitted, including the ratified list.
And I'll second the motion.
Okay. And how much was that for, Kath? 114,000, I think?
Yeah, it was 114, 473, 36.
Okay. So we have a second. Any comments, questions from anybody, Kath?
Let me look here real quick. No, there isn't.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Next, we have the treasurer's report.
Mr. Chairman, in the general fund, this will be for the end of June. General fund liabilities and equities was $3,029,117.42. Liquid fuels, no, I'm sorry, capital road was $4,768,510.37. Capital projects reserve was $1,413,73. Open space fund, $2,192,193.20. Liquid fuels, $187,337.55. And sewer is $42,411.14.
Spicy cornbread muffin with.
Escrows is $333,905.30.
Thank you. Any comments on the treasurer's report?
I am seeing none.
Okay, then we'll move on to the presentation for Buttonwood Bridge.
Mr. Chairman, we have two representatives from the McMahon Association, McMahon Associates, Chris Seaman and Stephen Giampolo, right? Kathy, I'd like you to give Chris the ability to put his slides up.
Okay.
The two
Let's
issues
see here.
when I first became acquainted with this project, a couple issues rose to my mind. One is the cost of projects. Not only it's the bridge, it's the proposed road and any right of way which may or may not need to be acquired. And the second is I want to make sure the board and the public understand the process that will be required to go through to get from where you are today to the first day of construction. The process pretty much is laid out by the permit requirements. Don't care who the engineer you use, you will use the same permit requirements, the same process. It'll take, I don't know, a year and a half or 2 years to go through the process. A lot of it depends on DEP. And as you go forward, the information that is of concern will lead you to a decision, I hope, in a month or two about which is the best alternative to select in terms of cost. Only a cost issue, not anything else in my mind. I reached out to McMahon Associates. I have worked with them over a number of years. I find them to be an exceptional engineer. And I asked them, take a look at it. Give me your best low cost estimate from a design standpoint. And Chris Steeman, and he made the proposal, and you have a copy of his correspondence, and he will go through the PowerPoint presentation. Chris?
All right, thanks, John. Can everyone hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so I put together a couple slides to go along with our proposal that was submitted to the board, just to kind of go over the project, kind of as a summary, go over some of the issues associated with the bridge, as well as the tasks that are included as part of our proposal. Let's see. So just a little bit about the project. So Buttonwood Lane is located off of Dark Hollow Road. There's basically consists of 3 different structures. So the first span that you get to when you turn off of Hollow Road is a 18-foot 6-inch long concrete encased steel I-beam bridge. As you move further down on Buttonwood, there's an elevated retaining wall / wing wall, which is about 48 feet long. Then you reach a smaller span, about 10 foot long, again, a concrete encased steel I-beam structure. These are just some pictures to show you what the different structures look like. So this is the longer span closest to Dark Hollow Road. They're all both of the openings are concrete encased steel I-beam bridges. This one has a wooden pier that was placed in the middle on some concrete footings, but the pier doesn't actually extend all the way over to the exterior girders. So while it's helping the middle, it's not doing much or anything for the exterior girders on the bridge. This is the second span, the smaller one, the 10-foot long span. Again, consists of concrete encased steel I-beams. There's a lot of debris in front of this span, which prevents a lot of the water from entering the span, and it actually bypasses it and goes down to the span 1. And then this is a picture of what's in between those 2 structures. It's somewhat of a concrete block, retaining wall, which attaches to a wing wall from the other span. But this is what spans in between the 2 structures. Just a little bit about what's going on with the bridge. So on the upstream side, you can see circled in yellow here, Birch Run diverges upstream. So part of it comes down, the secondary leg comes down here. The main leg continues, actually wraps around. Like I said, most of the water goes past this span and wraps around and goes under here where it meets up with the secondary leg of Birch Run. H&H is going to play a big factor in whatever bridge ends up getting put in here because it's so complicated and requires good analysis up front to figure out what the span length is and where the bridge can go as we're moving forward here. So again, so Buttonwood Lane Bridge, it serves as the only point of access for multiple residences. There's a farm back there, there's horse pastures on both sides, and then there's a number of residences as you wrap around to the left. It's the only access in and out. Currently, the bridge is posted for 25 tons, except combinations 30 tons. We don't know where that posting came from. As far as I know, there's no documentation as to how that number was come up with, but that is the signage that's out there today. It's the existing clear width on the bridge is 12 feet 6 inches. There is appears to be an orange temporary water barrier on the downstream side of the bridge because of the steel guide rail was falling off the side on that side. It is a 1-lane bridge. Even with the temporary barrier missing, it would still be a 1-lane bridge. So the existing concrete encased steel I-beams for both structures, just based on a site visit, appear to be in poor condition. Again, McMahon and myself, we have not inspected these structures at this point. Just based on the site visits, the steel beams we could see did have a lot of section loss. They were pretty rusted out. So they would most likely be rated in poor condition if we were to go out and inspect it using PennDOT standards. My understanding is that there are no inspection reports available from the township for either of these structures. And PennDOT doesn't get involved unless the spans are greater than 20 feet. So one of them's 18'6", and the other one's 10 feet. Anything over 20, PennDOT actually comes out, will do the inspection, and then for any bridge in townships that are over 20 feet, they do the inspections, and then they deduct the cost from the liquid fuels funds for the inspections. But since these are less than 20 feet, it doesn't appear as though these structures have been inspected, at least for a while. In terms of two different options. So option one, which is one we would kind of laid out, it's either going to end up being a single span or a 2-span bridge. Basically, this one would be constructed in place of the existing bridge. So the first stage would be to build half of the bridge adjacent to the existing bridge on the downstream side. So we would keep traffic on one side, and I have a slide on the next one to kind of show you this. So the first stage would be to build downstream, keep the traffic where it is. Once that's constructed, move the traffic over to the newly constructed part, and then demolish the existing what's there and then rebuild that. So at the end of the day, your final configuration would result in a 2-lane structure. Option two is to move the proposed bridge downstream after the 2 legs of Birch Run converge. So option one, and this is, I put these graphics on here from a layout that was prepared by ETA a while ago, just to show you the 2 different options. So this is the existing bridge in yellow. As part of the first option would be to construct enough bridge right here in red, immediately adjacent to the existing bridge. While traffic is maintained here, construct this. Once the red is built, traffic would be moved over to that, some temporary tie-ins here, while the yellow portion is then demolished and rebuilt. So at the end of the day, you know, your final structure configuration would be the combination of both the yellow and the red boxes. There'd be minor roadway work on either side here to kind of tie it back in. But the overall configuration of the intersection and the location of the bridge would remain unchanged. Option two is, as was presented here by ETA. You would move the entire bridge downstream where the 2 legs converge. This option would require, obviously, a lot. A new intersection would require significant fill to build up the roadways to create that intersection, as well as a lot more right-of-way in terms of taking from the horse pasture here and then somehow tying this road back in on this side. So those are the 2 options that, you know, that we've looked at this point. The specific task that was included as part of our preliminary proposal, which was not all-inclusive of the engineering costs relative to the project, just to kind of, just enough to come up with the options and pick the alternative that the township would like to proceed. The first task was some additional topographic survey and right-of-way research. In order to model the H&H, and as I mentioned before, the H&H is going to be critical in this project. In order to model the H&H and create the existing model for Birch Run, we need to get enough survey data where, as I showed before, where it diverges. We need additional survey data at that point so we can create cross sections upstream. So that's where the additional topographic survey comes upstream of the bridge. We need additional elevations at the bridges just to measure and confirm the size of the hydraulic openings. And then there'd be some additional information needed just to verify the right-of-way information that was shown previously. As far as the hydrologic and hydraulic analysis is concerned, again, we would model the existing Birch Run configuration with the existing structures as they're shown right now. The thing with this area and Birch Run, so Birch Run at this location is a detailed FEMA study area, which means that the 100-year elevation of both the existing and proposed conditions cannot change. So whatever 100-year elevation we get for the existing model, whatever water is conveyed through those two openings, whatever proposed option that be, it can't change. It can't change by a foot. It can't change by an inch. So that's why the H&H is critical in determining which option works best, whether the longer span option is it's a single span or a two span. We have to figure out what the low chord or the bottom of the beam elevations are. We need to know the locations of the abutments, so then we can model both of those options and compare it to the existing and make sure that we're not changing that 100-year flood elevation. That's going to be a requirement from DEP in order to get the permit. And then the last task that's associated with it is the structural alternative analysis and preliminary cost estimate. Basically, what we would do is go through for each option for both downstream and the one immediately adjacent. We'd go through and do a preliminary beam design, determine the depth of that beam, create roadway profiles for both of those options, so that, again, like I mentioned before, so that we can determine what the low chord is on each of those bridges. We know where the abutments are at that point. We can place the abutments. We can come up with the option that works best from an H&H standpoint. So in terms of an estimated project timeline, and again, like John had mentioned, regardless of the bridge you use or whatever engineer you decide to go with, this is kind of just a general project timeline. But assuming that this project got moving in January, there would still be some preliminary structure design in terms of laying out the two different options, doing grading, determining the substructure types, if there's any utilities, coordinating with that, right away, laying out right away, easements. So that would take us to about March. Then we move into one of the things we would do as part of that would be to locate the structure borings. Once we get the structure borings located, we could have the driller come out and do borings, depending on the location of the substructure units. Work on the erosion and sediment control plans, which would be required in order to submit the permit. Complete the foundation report in August, and then you pull all that stuff together and submit. Most likely it's going to be a joint permit submission to DEP. There are wetlands in the area of the bridge, so there could be some mitigation for those, as well as the fact that if you widen more than 12 feet in any direction, then you typically fall into a joint permit submission and not a general permit submission. So as it stands right now, what we're hearing is it's taken anywhere from like 6 to 8 months just to review the permit submission. While they're reviewing that, we would work on the final structure plans, and then pulling all the final construction drawings together in terms of roadway, ENS. There obviously wouldn't be a detour, but pulling all that stuff together, advertising the project, and then starting construction. So that's basically the extent. I don't know if anyone has any questions on the slides or the proposal in general.
I do, Chris. It's Mike.
Mike.
You had in the red, you showed where you'd build one bridge, one lane bridge right next to the original bridge.
Yep.
And then you would knock down the old bridge and rebuild it. Why would you rebuild it?
Well, it's assuming that you guys would want a 2-lane. Right now, it's a 1-lane. If you only want a 1-lane configuration, and everyone's happy with 1 lane, then there's a chance that we could just leave this as a 1-lane bridge. We'd have to make it probably a little wider than we needed to in this stage, just to make sure we have enough for the 1 lane plus the barriers on either side. But if the township is interested in 1-lane bridge, then we can definitely look into that as well.
Well, I was just thinking it only serves X number of homes, which I think one lane bridge would be cheaper than 2. And I doubt it would be necessary to have a 2-lane bridge.
Yeah, and I guess
that
that
area.
as long as the township is funding this, that wouldn't be an issue. Now, if by chance PennDOT funding got involved in any way, shape, or form, then PennDOT minimum bridge widths would apply, in which case it's 24 feet curb to curb.
Right. But they would only have a say if they're paying something, correct?
And Chris, it's Steve Giampolo from McMahon. Just to be clear, we would not be building 2 separate structures. It would be one structure. It's just Chris is proposing half-width construction. So you would build half of the bridge in red, utilize the existing one in yellow, and then you can shift traffic over to the newly constructed portion. So let's say,
yeah, at the end of the day, it wouldn't be 2 separate structures.
No, it'd be one at the end.
Right.
But why go through the expense of a 2-lane when it probably won't be necessary for traffic?
And that's something we can cost, come up with a cost for that.
Yeah.
Okay. And the second option, downstream, to only cross over 1. Do you have any feeling on costs between the 2?
Well,
I would think the second option would be more expensive.
Yeah.
It is. Well, especially from a roadway standpoint, and building an intersection, and doing all this work on this side, the cost is going to go up in terms of doing that. It's definitely this structure, this one in red, if that's what we end up going with, the structure might be a little bit more than this one, but in terms of roadway costs, the roadway.
Yeah, total. We'd be looking at total cost.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. And
Mike,
Mike,
thought on this is that do we have any sense of whether there's any potential of development back on the peninsula or the island?
you mean in the Buttonwood subdivision?
Yes.
I think it's all built out except for possibly one lot that a neighbor owns, his next door neighbor lot. I think the big issue about the downstream structure is we need right of way or an easement to get across the horse pasture. We'd be taking horse pasture away and we'd have to build a road that we don't. So that one looks like whether the structure itself costs more or less, there's still an awful lot of on the ground costs. And if you look at that slope coming up from the roadside structure up to, yes, exactly where that looks like there's a considerable amount of earth moving and reshaping there. And so I'm inclined to it, and I'm agreeing with Mike's idea that maybe just a single lane bridge is enough. I remember that one of the concerns was it be wide enough for emergency vehicles, fire trucks, and the garbage, and moving vans. I think those were the issues in the past, that
Right,
the
which
weight
it would
would
be.
be enough and the width. So
Okay, so we're still going to need a right of way even to build the red one, correct?
Yeah, this is the right of way line. You can see it. It's just
Touches.
really on this edge of this red line. So there might be a little bit of right of way needed to maybe put in a wing wall or something. But again, this is just kind of drawn in. We'd have to go back in CAD and actually draw in where this would fall. If the township really just wanted a one-lane bridge, then maybe there might be just sliver of right of way on the edge here.
So there's a possibility we could build it in the right of way and not need any approval from the landowner? Or
Well, Chris, point down to the intersection, Chris, because where we come, we'll have to adjust the intersection down there. So you may need a little bit in there.
Okay, well, it seems like it would be easier to get that from the
Yes,
landowner than the
absolutely.
one downstream.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And to interfere with horse pasture and stuff, that seems like a mess.
And our,
Now,
and our analysis will identify all this. It'll be pretty clear on what.
Okay, we've been working on this for a couple of years, and I don't know I know Arrow or Cedarville was working on it at the beginning. I don't know where we are on what they've done. Do you have all their records?
Yeah, I guess, well, John provided us this layout as well as the survey that they did.
Okay.
That's the extent of the information we have.
Okay, so you on one of the slides, it said something about some additional surveying.
Yeah.
Would that be necessary if we don't do the downstream
The
bridge?
additional survey is needed because the survey that was done didn't extend all the way up to this.
And it has to?
Yeah, we need that to model the existing stream correctly. It only extends up in here, so it's already, so the model would be started with the streams already converged, and we need to get this point.
I mean, that's a requirement?
Yeah, from DEP, you got to go 500 feet upstream.
Yeah, we have to build a hydraulic model of the existing conditions and then the proposed condition.
And this,
And that's independent of the location, right?
I'm sorry, say that again.
So that's for option A or option B.
Yes.
Yeah, it doesn't matter which option, you need the same amount of survey.
Okay, so why did they only go, let's say, 250 feet instead of 500 if that's a requirement?
Probably because I think their task was maybe just to look at what you could do from a geometric standpoint. That's the only thing I can think of. I don't know.
Okay.
They weren't requested to do I don't know. We don't know the answer to that.
Okay, well, I know we approved a certain amount of survey work for this bridge. John, do you know if we've spent it or?
It happened before I got here. I asked Arrow or Brian Kay to give me all his information, which he did. So, and I can ask him why they only went that far, but there had to be a reason.
Okay.
I'm just not sure.
All right. Well, we should find out if there's any more work that they were supposed to do or
I'll check their agreement.
Okay. Sounds good.
John, Mike, and Bernie,
Yep.
if when they are doing this study, if it becomes apparent that it's much more practical to do the smaller bridge, whether it's 1 lane or 2 lane, rather than to go further downstream, can we ask them to make sure they let us know and not put effort on option 2 if it really looks like it's not going to be viable?
I think option 2,
Or if
the
it's
down.
Yeah,
I
if
think-
it's going to be $1 million worth of building a road across the pasture, and the other one, we're going to have to work on a little bit of right of way. We could just stop putting effort into the other one if it's going to be, if we're doing a costful, if it's not going to be a good decision engineering, if it's not a better decision engineering wide, and it clearly looks like it's going to be a much more expensive option, at some point we can just say, okay, you made the point, we don't need to invest more in documenting it.
It's worth.
I agree.
It's
And I
worthwhile. Let me add to that. It's worthwhile to look at both options. And the reason I say that is the DEP requires us to look at alternatives.
Okay.
Okay,
If
so
they
that's your
see something hydraulically they don't like for option 1, they may want to look at, they may think, you can look at something's going on, obviously, with the stream, it behaves. So you may get better hydraulics with option 2. But if that is the case, we could say, well, it's going to be very expensive for the township. There's going to be other impacts. So you have to kind of go through that vetting process. So
Yeah, I just think it's going to be harder to get the easement on the downward stream,
Well,
which will
definitely.
probably delay the whole project.
Right. But it also, but it's not just right. It also, to that property owner, it's impacting their property. So
Oh, absolutely. That's why it's going to be
something we
harder to
could
get.
present to the DEP. So it's, you know, we're all about trying to save costs, but at the same time, there's different agencies and everyone has different.
Yeah, and as part of this proposal, we're not doing a lot of work on this option.
Okay.
In terms of costs, like, you know, we're doing the existing model, which again doesn't matter which option we have, so that's not going to change.
Right.
We plug in like the abutments for this one and the low beam, and then for the proposed model for that one, and then we could just remove that and input this one in. So and then just do like, you know, preliminary cost, just to kind of show that it is, you know, that much more expensive. So we're not spending that much time on it.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
I guess I have a question for Sarah and Bernie. Nothing against McMahon. Why did we go to a different engineering firm for this purpose? What was that decision based on?
Go ahead, sir.
Go ahead, Bernie. Go ahead, Bernie. You've got seniority.
Quite frankly, I don't know. I believe that John had worked with McMahon before, and you know, we're taking a second look at this.
Yeah, and I was just shocked at actually the cost to do this preliminary work, but John tells me that's typically about 15 to 20% of the total project is to do this upfront work. So then it's not quite so bad. But I had a discussion with Brian Kulikowski about putting that new road across the pasture. And I thought, why do we need to do that? There ought to be a way we could at least swoop around to the existing driveway much sooner, because you would see on a larger plan that this driveway crosses a lot more pasture and doesn't re-enter the existing driveway until the driveway makes a turn to the right. And so it was like too much engineering without a thought of creativity, and how can we do this with less impact on the rest of the stream and the environment, you know, the rest of the field.
I understand, but I kind of remember.
So I'm talking to John about it, and he said, do we want to get another opinion? And I said, that sounds like a good idea.
Right.
I'm
I just
still
remember.
feeling like your turn, Mike, sorry.
I just remember whenever it was discussing this bridge, and I think there was a discussion on the exact same setup here. And I don't remember the one downstream, but I do remember the one right beside it being built and then taking down the other one.
And the downstream came from Arrow or Cedarville, whichever.
Yeah, I can't remember which one it was.
Yeah, wherever Brian was at the time.
Right. Okay. So, I mean, that's because you have to do the second option, I guess. I was just curious of why.
I think looking for fresh eyes on the subject. Do you remember when they did that work under the bridge? Was that since you've been in office, right?
Yes. When they brought it up from 20,000 or 15,000 tons to 25 and 30. Yes, Arrow or Cedarville, I can't remember which one did that work.
Mm-hmm. And so we must have the analysis of that, the weight permits for the bridge.
Yes,
but that's what it sounded like Chris said that hadn't found.
Yeah, at least John was unaware of anything.
Well, it should be, because they did the engineering for that increase on weight, and they probably did some boring also for the structure, right? Would they have done boring at that time?
For weight limit?
Yeah. Well, to increase the weight limit.
No, not for the weight limit, they wouldn't have.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So is that when those two concrete pillars with the wooden structure above it got put in?
I'm not sure. I don't remember that, but
that one.
I don't think they could have put that. They did something, but I don't know if they could do that. I mean, that would have taken a long time to get approval from EPA.
it was under the bridge and it was fortifying it in some way so
Yeah.
that we could increase the weight limit. So
Correct.
just curious, because,
Okay.
thank you.
All right. Well, thank you very much for the presentation. Any questions from the audience?
Let me check here. Seeing none.
Okay. Then we'll move on. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Next is the AG setback, right? I think.
That's correct.
Okay. And we have a motion for that?
Comment from the audience.
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
When I remember the Buttonwood Bridge has shown, oh, this is Brian Curry. The Buttonwood Bridge has shown up for a number of years as Bill's List items. Yes, the cribbing was installed so that the weight limit could be, what it's posted at right now. Without the cribbing, it would not make that. It was done by a structural firm or an individual that was somehow associated with either Silver Arrow, maybe both of them, whatever. But that also showed up as a Bill's List item. So there should be some paperwork available showing how they came to the conclusion and justification of that weight limit. And there may have been some boring of the bridge too to find out what was in it. I kind of remember something being done by the road crew for that. So there should be additional information available to McMahon to see what happened in the past and how they came to the conclusions that they did.
Thank you, Brian. That's
Any other comments, Kath?
I'm seeing none.
Okay. So we'll move. Oh, wait, that's right. We're on the AG. Go ahead.
right. I make the motion to approve Resolution 18-2020 to reduce the setback requirements for 905 Jane Lane.
I'll second that motion.
Okay. Any comments or questions, Kath?
Let me check here. I see none.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Richardson, have fun with those critters.
Okay, thank you.
Now we have Resolution 18-2020. I don't know what it is. Is that the same thing?
Yeah.
Yes.
So what did we just do?
That was what we did.
I thought that on the agenda there was 2 items for the same thing. No?
Could
it was just a discussion, the first to discuss it.
Okay, so that's done. All right, and next up is the anti-discrimination ordinance.
I make a motion to authorize the advertisement of the LGBT anti-discrimination ordinance.
I second that motion.
Kathy, do we have any questions or comments?
Let me see here. I am seeing none.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
No. Okay, moving on. Moving on, we have a proposal, I think, or something from Help Now for IT services.
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead, John. John, were you going to say something?
Yeah, I'm trying to be politically correct here. We have encountered a number of timeliness issues with the current provider, and I asked the chief to ask around to see if he could find a company that was well used and recognized by municipalities and police departments in the county that could provide this kind of service. And he came up with this Help Now company. We met with them, chief and I, and Kathy was in on one meeting. We met with them a couple times. They did an analysis for us that has been distributed to the board. I think it's appropriate to make a change here to a provider that can be more timely, but also keep the current system and improve the current, actually upgrade the current system, what we need.
And Mike had given you, Mike looked at several sources based on his research and then came up with this as his recommendation. Was that the case? Mike Schwinninger, you looked at multiple other companies and this was the one that came out on top. Is that true?
Sir, no, actually, I spoke to several municipalities and the chiefs that use them, and they came highly recommended throughout the county.
Okay. Okay. Well, thank you.
Sorry.
Okay. Mike, you would probably be the right person to ask some of these questions. Do you know what their reduced rate is?
Their reduced rate? No, I do not.
Okay. And do you know if the help desk, or do we pay for the help desk?
There's
These managed service.
I'm sorry, Mike. Go ahead.
The help desk, well, like if we have a problem with, or one of the employees have a problem with their computer, they call the company, we just, whatever the problem is, they come in and fix it and they charge that reduced rate. Is that how it works?
That's how it works, yes.
Okay. And they don't service the network products, the firewall, the routers and all that?
They will service the things that are not third party. If, like, I think the firewall, if they buy a firewall company, the firewall company will service that. They don't service that kind of stuff.
Well, firewall is, well, yeah, it could be. But the routers, the hardware for the network.
They'll service all the hardware, yes.
No, I didn't see that in the proposal. The only thing I noticed was the IPMI cost. They have a discount of $200, but we have 30 days to implement it. Do you know what the cost is to implement that, or the monthly cost? I'm guessing it's $200. I could be wrong.
$200, I believe.
Okay, so then we're at about $14.25 a month.
Yes.
Okay. Now, and is this a 3-year contract?
I believe it's a 3-year contract. Yeah.
Okay. Is there any reason to do? Like, was there a reason why we would go with a contract? I mean, did they give us a big discount for going, more than 1 year?
Yeah, they gave us a significant. The one thing they think they reduced or eliminated, they gave us credit for about $3,000 or $4,000 worth of onboarding expenses. To my mind, I would prefer to have a company that township could rely on. If it doesn't work, obviously we would fire them, but I don't want to be in a position of changing an IT company every year.
No, you don't really want to do that, but you also don't want a company to know that they have a business for 3 years and then treat you bad.
Well,
so you have to be a benefit.
They won't have if they treat us badly, they'll be on the short end of the stick. I'm not.
Well, it depends how the contract. It depends how the contract's written. That's the only downside of contracts.
Yes.
It has to favor both parties.
That's correct.
The reason I'm bringing up these questions, I had a issue with my own server, got hit with ransomware, and I tried to use our current provider and just had some issues. So I ended up finding a company, what the hell was the name of it? Main Street IT Solutions, and they offer a monthly cost. They look at your system and they give you a flat monthly cost, and they don't charge you for anything. They put in the hardware for the network and they maintain everything. They do basically the same thing because it's managed services at a flat rate. So there's no hourly rate like our current provider. When anything happened, they would charge us, that type of thing. So that's why I asked about the hourly rate. My second thought is, I don't know, if this is a 3-year contract, then it's a purchase of $30-some thousand. So can we do this without going for other bids?
Yeah, this is a professional service.
What's that?
It's a professional service. You don't need to bid.
Oh, okay. Okay, I didn't know that. All right. Well, my only thought would be just to know that this is, and I have no problem with Help Now. I don't know them, but I imagine you're good, to see about at least getting one other competing proposal for the same type of things, apples to apples.
Right.
Or find out if, one's better than the other, I guess.
One of the things that is important to me, but more important to the chief, is the vendor has to be approved, certified for accessing these records.
Absolutely.
That eliminates a large body of vendors who could provide the service, because it's not a person, any person who has access to that information. So if they get a new service provider, a new body, and that's the individual who would manage the respond to the police issues, that person would have to be certified.
Correct. I mean, I agree 100%.
That's the big issue, and that's why I think the chief went primarily with company, talked around to other municipalities, primarily other police departments, because that's the first hurdle.
John, I'm sorry. John, I just also wanted to follow up with that too, is that it's important that they have a working knowledge with our record management system, CODI, which is what we've been using for years. And most of the police departments they deal with also have CODI. So they've been working with CODI for several years and are very well-versed in working with that company. So.
Okay. I mean, that makes sense.
Yeah, and Mike Snyder,
yes.
I think we have some urgency about this. I noticed John trying to be politically correct. So I will just say, I believe we have some security issues that we need to fix as soon as possible. So I think if we have a good solution supported by references that Mike has gotten around the county, I would prefer that we move forward than delay on this.
And that's fine with me too. I was just wondering, because we only got one, I didn't see the other one, and I had the experience with the other company. It was very good. And I have never dealt with this one, so I didn't know any different.
Mike, if I could follow up with that, Mike and Sarah, there are some issues, and I don't really want to talk about them in a public meeting, but we do need to address them as soon as possible.
Hey, Mike, I couldn't disagree with you at all. Okay, so that's fine.
Okay, I've got a motion I could read.
Okay.
I make the motion to retain Help Now as the West Vincent Township IT service provider.
I'll second the motion.
Any comments or questions from the audience?
Let me check here. I am seeing none.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. What else do we have here?
We're back to Buttonwood.
Oh, okay.
We've discussed it pretty well. Do you want to go straight ahead to the motion?
Yeah, I think we have discussed it.
Okay, I make the motion to approve the McMahon Associates contract of $42,500 for the Buttonwood Lane Bridge project.
I'll second that motion.
Do we have any comments or questions?
Let me check here.
I have one question.
Bernie.
What is the end point to the 42,500? I saw a list of dates. I guess it was the last slide. Do we know what is covered by the 42?
They'll give you the information you need to determine which alternative you want to select, so that stuff covered on the last page can move forward. That last page began January 1st, 2021.
Right.
So this contract will work up through probably we're in August, September, October, probably November-ish. Then you spend a little time thinking about the alternatives to make a decision what you want to go forward. So it'll take a couple months to get really the survey work that needs to be done before they can do the H&H work. So this work is leading up to the board making a decision which alternative you select so that on January 1st, do all the work and those steps that are outlined in their proposal in that slide.
And will we know how much each of the projects will cost?
Yes, you'll have a rough estimate. Yes.
Rough estimate. Okay.
All right.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other comments, questions, Kathy?
I'm seeing none.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And that takes us to the end of the meeting, except for public comment.
Not seeing any hands raised.
All right, do we have a motion?
I make a
Make a
motion
motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
Thanks, Bernie.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, great. Have a good evening, everybody.
Thank you.
Good meeting, everybody.
Thank you.
Kathy. Get some rest.
Okay. Oh, thank you.
All right.
Everybody
Take
have a
care.
good night.
Thanks.
Stay dry tomorrow.
Yes.
See you, John.
Yes, watch
Okay.
for the flood zone.
Okay. I am going to end it. Have a good night.
See you tomorrow. Thanks.
Okay.